Can the dead communicate with the living? These stories may make you believe that some souls that depart this world may possess the ability to be able to use earth-based technology to say one last thing. Can the energy of technology be the same or similar frequency to someone in the afterlife so they can tap into it and get their message across? Today I talk about 5 people who were contacted by dead people via a phone. Hello and welcome back, or welcome to my channel. If you don't know what's going on here, well, I can tell you that I'm not a Disney princess channel, but I am a horror artist and I like to draw what I talk about in the videos. Now, I like anything to do with scary facts, scary stories, true crimes, anything to do with paranormal, aliens, conspiracies, and I like to draw, so I like to combine all of that into these videos to hopefully bring you a unique experience. Now, if you want to support me in any way, shape or form, I do have a Redbubble store that you can access in the description down below, and I have all my prints on there of the illustrations that I do in these videos. And if you are a creative person, I have an Etsy store where I make felt toy patterns, so you can download them and you can make your own felt toy. I've got horror characters on there from movies and all that type of stuff. I've even got my own designs, so just head across there and check it out. And with that being said, let's get on with the video and let's get on with the drawing. According to ParanormalScholar.com, David Wilson was a London solicitor who made himself a Morse code machine from a wireless telegraph in the early 20th century, but it took a creepy turn when the machine was being used by his friend that received a strange message in 1913, but the device was disconnected and it still managed to relay messages, which should not have happened. David was present as well and started to decipher the beeps as they came in. One message that came through in 1915 said, "Great difficulty, await message, 5 days, 6 evenings." Another message that came through was, "Wait until next Tuesday." But nothing ever happened. David was pretty damn confused by why this machine was working even though it had no input and was disconnected, so he called in researchers to go over the machine, and no one could explain how this machine was working, and no one could work out where the signal was coming from. So the only explanation they could come up with was that a ghost may have been tapping into the device and trying to relay something from the afterlife. But after the experiment was published, David and his Morse code device disappeared from the records, but this case did get people thinking that maybe electronic devices could be used by dead souls or even interdimensional beings. Italian inventor Guglielmo Marconi started his wireless experiments in 1895, and in 1896 he patented the wireless technology that consisted of a radio wave. He was also credited in inventing the radio and laying the foundation for TV and wireless modem communication. I wonder if he ever had any paranormal incidents when he was creating his wireless technology. A man and his grandmother would walk into town together most days, and she would leave her door open because it was the 70s and life was a little less crazy. But when she got her phone bill, she freaked out because it was unusually very high, so she got her phone disconnected, thinking that someone was waiting for her and her grandson to leave the house and was using her phone, but this is where it gets a little bit creepy. One night her phone rings and she was confused because the phone was disconnected, but she answered it anyway, and it happened to be her friend Lizzie Partlett in West Virginia. Lizzie said that she was going away, but everything was okay and that she was only going to be able to say a few words, and she would hear about what happened in a few days. The grandmother and her son contacted the operator the next day, and they said that her phone was definitely disconnected, and even a linesman climbed up the pole and cut her line outside of her house, so her house phone was dead in the water. 3 days later, she received a letter from Lizzie's family saying that Lizzie had died the night before the letter was written and sent, which apparently puts the eerie phone call she received from Lizzie after she died, so it should have been impossible. It appears that Lizzie contacted her friend to say she was okay in the afterlife. Did she really receive a phone call from her dead friend, or was it a series of coincidences that appeared paranormal? What do you think? In 1978, a woman named Madeleine White was receiving phone calls from her friend Edie, who wouldn't leave a return number to call her when Madeleine's son John would answer. Madeleine would come home from work when her son gave her all the messages. She said to John that she hadn't heard from Edie for years, so she was curious to know why her old friend was calling out of the blue. The next day, Edie called again, but Madeleine was at work, so her son answered it and asked Edie for a return number, but Edie replied, "It doesn't matter, I'll call again later," and just hung up. The next day again, for the third time in a row, Edie called again, but didn't leave her number. Madeleine got concerned and decided to contact a mutual friend for Edie's number, which she got, and then she called the number to see what Edie wanted. But when she called, Edie's husband answered, and Madeleine asked to speak to Edie. But Edie's husband went silent for a bit, and then finally said that Edie died 3 days ago of a brain hemorrhage. After the call to Edie's husband, Madeleine received another call from supposedly Edie, but once Edie's funeral had wrapped up, Madeleine never got another call from Edie again. Was Edie just trying to communicate to an old friend, or was someone playing a trick on Madeleine? What do you think about this one? Charles Peck was on a commuter train in LA on the 12th of September 2008 when it crashed head-on into a freight train. Roughly 25 people died in the accident. Apparently, for roughly 12 hours after the crash, family members of Charles were receiving phone calls from Charles's phone, which included his mother, father, fiancé, brother, sister, and son, but when they answered the calls, they only heard static. When they tried to return the calls back to Charles, it just went to his voicemail. Apparently, around 35 calls were made from Charles's phone, spread across his family. This kept the hopes up in the family, thinking that they would find him alive, and was ringing to say that he was okay, but may have been too injured to talk, but it couldn't have been, because when rescuers found Charles, he had been dead for a while. In other words, Charles died on impact instantly. The coroner confirmed this when Charles's body was examined. Charles died at 4:22 p.m. on the 12th of September. The last phone call, which would have been the 35th call that came from Charles's phone, was at 3:28 a.m. on the 13th of September. He was dead the whole time his phone was ringing people. Was this a glitch in his phone that coincidentally dialed his family members because the phone may have been damaged, such as the screen, and was just doing this weird shit? Or was it Charles trying to tell his family of his fate and wanted one last goodbye? What do you think? Dean Koontz is an American horror thriller author and has claimed that he received a warning from his dead mother via telephone. In September 1988, Dean was sitting in his office when his phone rang and heard a weak voice on the other end that said, "Please be careful." Dean asked who it was, but the voice repeated, "Please be careful," 3 more times before the call just abruptly ended. Dean was shocked because the voice sounded exactly like his mother that had died 20 years prior, so this seemed impossible. Also, Dean's number was an unlisted private number, so he was confused about this as well. It's extremely rare to receive calls from telemarketers and other people who don't know you when you have a private number. 2 days later, Dean went to the retirement home where his father was after his father's nurse contacted him. His father would cause problems in the home, but on this occasion, Ray, Dean's father, was being abusive and violent towards other residents there. The nurse wanted Dean to come down and try and calm Ray down, but when Dean got there, his father Ray grabbed a knife and tried to stab Dean. Dean fought him off and got the knife off of him. Police were called and Ray was taken to a psychiatric facility. It took Dean a while to come to terms with the possibility that the phantom call he got 2 days prior to the incident was probably his mother warning him of his father's actions. Also, when Dean was with his mother in 1969, when she died, she said on her deathbed that she had life-changing information on his father, but Florence ended up dying before she could tell him. He often thought that Ray may not have been his real father, but he couldn't bring himself to get a blood test done. His father was an alcoholic, abusive, and already pulled a knife on him prior to the incident in the nursing home. Ray was diagnosed with schizophrenia. After the second attempt of Ray trying to stab Dean, he never received another phone call again from a mysterious person or his potential dead mother. Either way, he believes someone was looking out for him that day. Now, what do you think about these potential ghost phone calls from the dead? Do you think that they are real? Do you think that these could potentially be loved ones or people trying to contact via telephone? Or do you just think it's a pure coincidence? Let me know your theories in the comment section below. Now, the illustration that I decided to do for the video today was something that was centered around, obviously, phantom phone calls and potential ghost phone calls. So I decided to do this dead woman who is basically calling up somebody and has a phone dialer, like an old school phone dialer, in her chest, and she's like touching the numbers and like turning the numbers to try and call whoever she's calling. And I had this idea to make the telephone receiver part basically built into the fingers, and there, so you've got the pinky and the ring finger built into the talking receiver, and then you've got the pointer finger and the middle finger basically built into the part that you put to your ear. So yeah, and then all the cables of the phone coming out of the wrist, which is connected to the receiver, and that in the fingers, and then you've got the cord coming out of the center of the telephone in the chest, and it's going up into the brain, kind of just like a whole, portraying the communication of the dead through the telephone lines and all that type of stuff. And yeah, just a torso that's just dripping blood, just felt that. Don't mind this illustration, it's okay, but still trying to work on things, and this is obviously going to be my last video before I tackle Inktober for a whole month of just doing black and white drawings with maybe a little bit of color depending on how I feel. But I will have a video released to show you what I'm going to be using for Inktober if anyone cares, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. But anyway, that is it from me. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. Dislike it, I really couldn't give two shits what you do, because any interaction that you give me goes towards the algorithm for other people to find me. And hopefully you watch whatever is left of this video, and hopefully I will see you guys in the next video, which will be the Inktober one. Bye.